G'day, Ben from Australia here, and today I'd like to talk about some of my favourite Australian music from the 60s. It's been said that the 60s didn't start until the 70s in Australia. Now, culturally, that may be true, but musically, I'd like to prove that wrong. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. First up, the Atlantics with Bombora. This was Australia's entry into the surf guitar sound in the early 60s. This one came out in 1963. I'm surprised there weren't more surf guitar bands in Australia, considering our surf culture and being an island surrounded by some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. Later on, the Atlantics would record the stone cold garage rock classic Come On, which you can find on one of the Nuggets compilations. Fantastic record. Next up, you cannot talk about Australian 60s music without mentioning the Easy Beats. And to me, the album Friday on My Mind is their best set of songs. It just holds together better. I think that Harry Vander and George Young really come into their own as songwriters. They'd already shown signs of that with the great singles of Sorry and She's So Fine. And of course, who can forget Stevie Wright, the great front man, which every other front person in Australia has been measured by since. And of course, while the rest of the world was experiencing Beatlemania, down here in Australia, we had Easy Fever. Okay, moving right along. The Loved Ones with Magic Box. This is a great R&B influenced early kind of mod sound to me, with Jerry Humphries' impassioned vocals over the top, featuring the classic songs Ever Loving Man, The Loved One, and Sad Dark Eyes. You may have heard Sad Dark Eyes and The Loved Ones have been covered many times. This is along with the Purple Hearts, Masters Apprentices, and the Missing Links. Some of my favourite garagey R&B driving sounds. Great Australian record. Speaking of the Missing Links, here they are, the band with the longest hair in Australia at one time, shocking audiences by smashing their gear way back in 1964. If it's any measure of how great they were, the Saints covered their song Wild About You. Again, tracks off this appear on Nuggets compilations, probably better known from that than what they were at the time. But this is a great reissue on Sundays, so this one probably pretty easy to get. Classic garage rock album. Next up, a little bit more garage rock, the Purple Hearts, featuring guitar god Lobby Lloyd. These is in the days before he became Lobby Lloyd and the Coloured Balls and played on classic Billythorpe records in the 70s. This features probably my favourite Purple Heart songs, Just a Little Bit. Check it out, it's a killer. Next up, the Masters and Apprentices. Now this is the 60s version of the Masters and Apprentices, which is quite a bit different from the It's Because I Love You era of Masters and Apprentices. This again has got that hard driving R&B garage sound with the great vocals of Jim Keys. Also has Glenn Wheatley on bass, believe it or not, who would go on to manage John Farnham, but that's another strange story for another day. This features the fantastic Poor Boy and War or Hands of Time, which was one of the few songs that addressed the Vietnam War in Australia back in the day. Fantastic. Right, next up, more Lobby Lloyd connections with the Wild Cherries. Wild Cherries to me were kind of like a more raw bluesy than R&B. Like the tempos were a bit slower. Some traditional blues covers on here, like you've got things like Smokestack Lightning on here, Baby Please Don't Go, and some originals on here as well. This is really good raw blues stuff. They went on to record their best known single called Chrome Plated Yabby a year or two later, but this is a good representation of their early stuff. Next, we're going to change direction with singer-songwriter, poet Pip Proud with his album Adrenaline and Richard. Now, this is, to me, very much in that sort of freak folk sound. Pip played acoustic guitar on this. He was backed by session musicians. With lots of those albums of that era quite often end up weirder because of that professionalism behind an eccentric character up front. This one's on Superior Viaduct, and his second album was also released on Superior Viaduct as well, which was recorded only 6 months later. I was unaware of Pip until these reissues, but they're fantastic records and probably a lot easier to get outside of Australia. Okay, we were talking about Billythorpe earlier. That's one of the holes in my collection. I only have this hits compilation, and this covers all of his 60s stuff. It's kind of all I need, because although I like a lot of this, it's more in the pop end of things. He does a great cover of Poison Ivy on here, which, believe it or not, held out the Beatles for the #1 spot. And what's more incredible about that is the fact that held out the Beatles for #1 while they toured Australia in 1964. Strange times in Australia indeed. Okay, a lot of Australian stuff, unfortunately, is out of print, so it's difficult to get. That the reissues are quite rare. Often it'll be compilations. Also, if it is reissued, be in quite small runs. So I discovered a lot of, especially the garage rock stuff, through compilations, and one of my first ones, which I got, and one of my favorites, was the CD Ugly Things. At the time, I didn't realize that this was actually a condensed version of the 3 records that came out in the 80s on Raven, which I eventually tracked down. So here's volume 1 of Ugly Things, and so you've got things like The Missing Links, the absolute, to me, classic garage rock song by the Black Diamonds called I Want, Need, Love You. It's as raw as anything. It's a fantastic song, and what's even stranger about it is apparently it was them just mucking around doing a B-side, because they were mainly a pop band back then. Okay, so got volume 2 here. So there we go. This one also has the La-Di-Das, which are a New Zealand band, but we love them anyway, and they're our neighbours, so that's okay. We got Purple Hearts, the Atlantics, and the Throb on here. And on the 3rd edition, Loved Ones on this one, the Twilights, some more Throb, Chance R&B, another New Zealand band. That's a great band worth checking out as well. And about 10 years ago, we got our own Nuggets compilation. This is a double album. It's got a great gatefold here, which tells you all about the bands, which is great because of, a lot of that information has been lost in time over here. And we didn't have the music press back in the day, which had the appreciation of what was going on in our own backyard. We loved everything that was going on overseas, but it seemed to garner heaps more attention at the time. And it's only people like me and other Australian record collectors that really value a lot of this stuff. Anyway, that went on a little bit longer than I planned. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care, and we'll see you next time.